Watch this.
It's Friday. You made it through the week, and we have a loaded 208 program for you. Did you know? Tomorrow, July 1st, a whole collection of new Idaho laws go into effect across the state. Andrew Bartline has the rundown. We've got some big changes only hours away. Good news, everyone! The Boise River is open for business, kicking off the summer of fun. It's a good news Friday for the folks we ran into at Barber Park. A lot to celebrate. And what a week it was, right? You had a lot to say on some of the news and notes from around the state this week, so we're digging into the mailbox to see what you had to say and share. 208 starts now. Oh, there's a lot of holidays to mark down on your summer calendar. Of course, Memorial Day, Flag Day, a personal favorite, 4th of July coming up. And they all usually look back to remember moments of our great history, but one looks forward. I'm talking about one day. Started the new fiscal year here in the state of Idaho, and it's not technically a holiday, but there is a lot to talk about tomorrow because unless otherwise written in legislation, tomorrow is the day that new laws are enforceable here in the Gem State. All that reporting we do through the legislative session, telling you about what's going on, everything with the state lawmakers. Well, tomorrow, that's kind of the payoff because that's when a lot of this starts to impact you. So Andrew Bartline is going to catch us all up.
Heating up the voting booth next election day? Well, check the ID you got on hand. I'm talking to you, college kids.
Students maybe from a state like Washington or Oregon where they vote by mail may come over here with their student ID and vote in person and then fill out their ballot from another state and thereby voting twice.
That concern held enough weight for Idaho lawmakers to remove student IDs as an acceptable form of identification at voting polls. Bill sponsors say 104 people in the entire state used a student ID in the 2022 general election. Democrats largely oppose the legislation. Currently, 8 people sit on the Gem State's death row, with the most recent execution dating back more than a decade.
We are unaware of the availability of any other drug that would allow us to complete an execution.
The state says the drug in demand for lethal injection is hard to get.
That's punishment. This is the just punishment under our laws of our state.
Representative Bruce Skog proposed bringing back the firing squad in response. The bill passed with strong support, but not without pushback, even from fellow Republican lawmakers.
It's, in a word, brutal. And the use of the firing squad, in my opinion, is beneath the dignity of the state of Idaho.
And welcome you to the Senate.
One of the more packed committee rooms hosted the debate on public school bathrooms and their strict separation based on biological sex.
The school's going to be responsible to make sure about the comfort level of a child on any side of this equation.
Senate Bill 1100 drew that hard line. Transgender students in Idaho public schools must now use the bathroom of their biological sex. Any school breaking that law can be sued in civil court for $5,000.
When I, transitioned, I knew there was going to be challenges, but there's a lot of people who would sell us out for $5,000 even if they weren't really bothered.
We are experienced.
The state of Idaho bans near all abortions, exceptions for rape with a police report, incest, or a doctor's decision to prevent the death of the mother. It's leading some outside state lines.
Yes, they have been leaving Idaho to get abortion care.
But some of those, too, are now illegal.
A connection to abortion and human trafficking.
It is now against the law to drive a minor across state lines for an abortion, granted the intent to hide the abortion from the parents or legal guardians. Even with parental permission, you'd be presumed guilty of trafficking until proven innocent, and it's punishable by serving 2 to 5 years in state prison.
Is the next step here surveillance? Are they going to start surveilling Idahoans in terms of what we are doing when we cross state borders?
The state of Idaho does not collect or spend property taxes.
But the state did try to do something about it. House Speaker Republican Mike Moyle worked with the Senate to shell out hundreds of millions of dollars back to local school districts. The idea is to pay off bonds and levies and lessen the burden on local property taxpayers. But there's no guarantee taxes will go down as a result.
Nobody's really talked about that because they have that option. They can raise their budgets, and if they do, you won't see as much property tax relief.
These are just 5 of the more than 250 new laws that officially go on the books starting tomorrow, though a large majority of those are budgets, bills, things that keep the cogs of government moving in motion. Joe, your chief political reporter, how'd I do? What's the grade?
You did okay. I will say this. You missed something.
Yeah?
Okay, boys, roll the tape. How about this? And Katie, how do I say
No.
this? All right, Erectodromius, according to producer Katie. We'll just call him Ori. Starting tomorrow, this is the new official state dinosaur of Idaho. Andrew, your thoughts?
That's, that didn't make my top 5, but it's in a list somewhere. Out of the 250, it fits somewhere in that pecking order.
Okay, well, I know that there's some grade school kids around the state of Idaho that are celebrating because they brought this to lawmakers. They got it through the process. They got all the lawmakers to sign off on it, which is amazing.
It was a 4th grade class, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I know you and Brian worked on this a lot. It was a 4th grade class. Pretty cool.
So we'll just call it the Ori dinosaur here. So anyway, starting tomorrow, Idaho has its first official dinosaur. So there you go.
Circle it on the calendar.
Good
I'm
job.
excited. I'll celebrate.
A-.
Okay, that's a good grade. Better than the grades I got in school.
We'll talk about it after the show. All right.
Thanks, Joe.
It's Andrew Bartline. Thank you. So, did Idaho get fleeced by fraud? It appears the answer is yes, but there's a fix coming, and in terms of fraud, it is a small percentage statistically, but what am I talking about? Okay, the review of the Empowering Parents Grant Program, you may remember this, it started in 2022, and it sends funds to students for educational expenses, kind of a COVID-era program. The Idaho legislature made the program permanent during this past session, allocating $30 million to it, and long story short for you, there are grants that are sent to families, $1,000 per student, up to $3,000 per family, and lower income households are prioritized. Recently, though, there was concerns about grant money being misused. Purchases for things like TVs and smartwatches were flagged because they didn't qualify, raising an alarm about fraud. Well, a full internal review of the program is just into our newsroom late this afternoon. State Board of Education says less than 1% of total purchases in this program were identified as ineligible. The ineligible purchases represent approximately 0.57% of the total grant funds expended, and the reimbursements of the ineligible purchases from the state's vendor, Odyssey, they are in process. There's also some new procedures that have been created to prevent ineligible purchases from happening in the future, like staff will be reviewing all purchases within 72 hours of a purchase. I do want to mention there is still an independent audit of this system that is going to continue from an outside agency. Governor Little requested that.
I think it's fair that people would, especially folks in the community here, would want to make sure that whoever the board is hiring is the right person for the job. I think all those kind of factors kind of culminating together made this a little more difficult than it needed to be, but I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I look forward to doing good things for the district.
Made this a little more difficult than it needed to be. Kind of sums it up. It's been a bit of a bumpy ride for the West Bonner County School District Board of Trustees and their appointments of their new superintendent. Former Democratic lawmaker, former candidate for state superintendent, former analyst for the Idaho Freedom Foundation. Yes, he wears a lot of hats, but Mr. Brandon Durst, he looks like he's going to be the next superintendent in West Bonner. And this will be the district's 5th superintendent in a little over a year. So things have been some sort of disarray for a while in West Bonner. So several weeks ago, when it first came up and it was known that Durst was up for the gig, the board voted 3-2 to hire him over the interim superintendent. Teachers and school administrator Susie Lucky, the community, raised their concerns about Durst's past and lack of qualifications for the job. Some say they really preferred Lucky. Now, there was even a raucous meeting where the board discussed Durst's contract, which was full of outbursts from the audience. 2 of the trustees walked out of that meeting, and it ended with the possibility of the offer to Durst being rescinded. That didn't happen. And this week, though, they did agree finally to a $100,000 2-year contract for Durst, where an emergency declaration had to be issued in order for him to obtain a provisional certificate so that he could legally be a superintendent, because technically under state code isn't qualified. Yesterday, we heard from Mr. Durst, and as you heard, he looks forward to proving that conservative principles will work in education, despite the opposition that he's heard so far. Today, we're going to hear from one of those people that were opposed to the hiring. West Bonner County trustee Margie Hall was one of the 2 trustees to vote against Durst's appointment. She's lived in Bonner County since 1981, and she's been on the school board since 2015, and her background is in community development, what she describes as bringing people together and not imposing policies from the top down, which is what she felt happened with the appointment. It felt very political, she said. It was too quick and not enough input from the community, in her opinion. something that she's seen a growing problem in West Bonner recently.
I think there's always, and what I've always been concerned about is that there's always been sort of a divide, and I keep working to try to fix that divide. You know, in my ideal world, people would sit down around the table as stakeholders and we would hash things out civilly, not pushing something down, but working at the pace of your stakeholders. I mean, that's what I think is what I've seen in the last, especially this last year, is that with good intention, maybe, but we've gotten in front of the stakeholders, and it doesn't mean what's, you know, one side or the other, but we've jumped ahead, and then we haven't been able to bring people along.
When Brandon Durst's name came up for this position, were you shocked? Did it come out of nowhere?
It did for me. When I saw it was a surprise to me. I also, one of the things that I felt was that we expedited the process. That expedited process was not needed. It was extremely disruptive, and that didn't need to be.
You want to get out of here?
You know, it would have been more prudent if we had Susie Lucky, kept her at a minimum as an interim superintendent for 2023, 2024, and conducted the full search at a better pace. You know, we ran it too quickly. And so that was,
Why do you think that is?
I would say, unfortunately, I think there were probably some potential interest to have him, you know, have it very close and very quickly done, you know, without having, say, a concrete evidence to that fact. It was done rather quickly and a bit too quick. I do feel that there was definitely a time, you know, where 3 board members, and I've said it on tape, and I've left a message with our prosecuting attorney that 3 board members came with a script and 2 of us couldn't see it. So that doesn't build trust that does not build trust among your trustees.
Point of order! Okay, we're done.
You could hear in these meetings, and even outside these meetings and on social media, there's a lot of vocal opposition to him being appointed. Do you think then that is an example of the board listening to the community?
I think that's where I feel that we've gotten ahead of ourselves. I think that, you know, there's a lot of hoops and a lot of pushback, and my feeling is my question is West Bonner County being used as an experiment or a laboratory to test certain ideas out on? Is that what we want to put our kids through and our community through? And I guess I would say I really don't want to do that.
Trustee Hall says that interim Superintendent Lucky would have been a better fit, in her opinion, for the district and would have qualified through an alternative authorization instead of a provisional one Durst needs. She understands the community, and she would have given it some stability. Trustee Hall would have liked to have probably waited until November, she says, to start the search, even hire an outside firm to help, since they have, in her words, have twice tripped over themselves in hiring a superintendent. Durst's appointment still needs the approval of the State Board of Education.
He graduated a year before I did.
So he wasn't even barely a year out of school by the time he was killed in Vietnam.
This is Hugo, and he's never been to D.C. to see the real monument.
Thanks for staying today.
All your help.
That's what we're here for. All right, thanks. Take your time with him.
Hugo stood in this exact spot for 6 minutes, healing through a wall.
Hugo's best friend is one of 58,281 names on the wall that heals. All American servicemen who either died or went missing while fighting in Vietnam. The wall is a 3/4 scale replica of the Vietnam Veteran Memorial in Washington, D.C. that travels the country. So people like Hugo don't need to travel the over 2,000 miles to our nation's capital just to spend some time with his best friend. We've told you all about the wall that heals this week, and each time you've shared some great comments and memories, like this one from Jill, who said, "The wall has been here before. I remember taking my daughters to see it. It brings tears to your eyes." Phil in Boise wrote to us saying, "So Andrew's story on the Vietnam War Memorial has me tearing up. Fortunately, I have no family members' names on that wall, but as a kid born in 1961, that war dominated my childhood news headlines." Cecil in Meridian said, "So happy to see that the arrival of the Vietnam Wall replica was on your radar. My husband was a Vietnam vet, so it's important to our family and to so many." And you can visit the wall 24 hours a day through Sunday at Sensi's headquarters in Meridian. There are veterans on site at all times for anyone with questions. And happening tonight at 9:30, a candlelight vigil and a reading of Idahoans on the wall.
Hi there and welcome. The temperatures this afternoon have been up to the mid-90s. It is the hottest day that we've had so far this year. Okay, hotter days have, or not hotter days, but days that have been up to about 92 degrees. We've had a couple of those, but we've been up to 95, and tomorrow promises to be a few degrees warmer than the high temperature that we had today. So here's a look at your weekend. And if you got 4 days off here, you can see what's happening with the temperatures as you get into Monday. Temperatures are going to be dropping a little bit, probably somewhere around 90, 91 degrees, which is the same thing for Wednesday. And then they'll pop back up basically about into the mid 90s or so. So you can see the variance is only by about 4 or 5 degrees over this weekend through next week and into the following weekend as you look at most of those temperatures. So high temperatures for tomorrow. Make your plans now. For Saturday, it's going to be sunny. No storms. No thunderstorms, at least through next Thursday, okay? Just sunny, hot weather. And as you look around the Magic Valley, you see most temperatures into the 90s. Burley tomorrow will have the high temperature of 92. As you look at Fairfield, there's 87. Stanley's up to 80 degrees. Western Mountains, Cascade at 84. There's Council at 92. So some temperatures are up there. In Ontario, are you ready for this? The high temperature tomorrow could be as high as 101, which is an indication that if we see the high today already at 95 degrees, and if we see it pop up to about 97 or so, we could see a couple of more degrees added to these temperatures. It's very close to 100 degrees already, as you see. There's the 98 degrees for Boise, 97 degrees for the high temperature in Meridian. So as you notice, it's going to be hot through the weekend. So here's the next 7 days. As you see, temperatures dropping just a bit into next week. And then we're still going to be seeing high temperatures around 91 to 95 degrees. And the good news about this, Joe, is that most of these temperatures at night will be dropping down into the 60s. That gives us some cool mornings, to begin with. So that looks pretty good. And I understand you've got some good news down by the river, which means the temperatures are a little cooler down there. I think that's
right.
Good news, too.
Oh, Rick, that's it. We're going to go to break, and when we come back, we're going to see exactly what Rick Lance is talking about. We'll be right back after this. Well, here we are. Let's take a look at some of your thoughts. This person says, thank you for your coverage of the Vietnam Wall I visited today. There were volunteers there who helped me find my classmate, even had his military and enlistment photo. The museum also highlighted a photo array of our Idahoans who were lost in Vietnam. That's from Deborah. Bora, class of 1969. Thank you so much, Deborah, for watching and for that comment here on a Friday. This person says, just sent this to the 208, 5 p.m. newscast. Why has there been not any pet safe announcements and livestock for the 4th of July? We need to remind others to protect our anxiety-anxious pets this season. I agree. I've got a border collie at home that freaks out. So be careful, be thoughtful about what you're setting off for the 4th of July. Be safe, be sane. Those are the two things. This person says, have a nice holiday break. Thank you. When will we be back? Yeah, actually, Teresa, we are going to be back here on Monday, but we will be off on Tuesday for the 4th of July, but the 208 will continue back next Wednesday. I'll tell you this, though. We're going to send into the weekend with some of your good news. Jason Foster and I went down to the Boise River to meet you. Here's what he had to say.
Tell us your news.
Check, 1 2 1 2.
My good news is the river's freaking open, man. We're going down. We're spending summer, having fun now. Finally.
My name is Haley.
These are the Bronx and the McDonald's.
Brockdonald's.
Or Brockdonald's for short.
My good news is me going with my family on a beautiful boat ride.
We're gonna float to Boise and have a good time and cool off in this heat.
I'm most excited for spending time with my family.
But the good news is that God is good all the time.
Now back to you.
My good news is that my band has a show coming up that we just planned, so follow us at Fetch the Music to learn more. We're super hyped.
Good news. Just took charge of a platoon up in Alaska, and I'm here spending the week with my friends here. We're gonna have a good time on the river.
My good news is I have 4 military sons, and 2 of them are home for 4th of July. One lives in Okinawa, the other's on his way to Germany, so great news that they're home.
We came to visit our friends in Idaho from Park City.
Yeah. And we're all floating the river today for the first time.
Woo! The first time to float the river!
We are at an awesome family reunion right now, which is super fun. We get to see all our family and have a great time.
We're scared!
Yeah, we're a little nervous, but fingers crossed.
We can do it. Moms can do it.
Life jackets are nice and tight.
Yeah.
It's our first opening week at Boise for rafting.
We all go to Boise State out here, and we all just were like, the river's open now? We're going immediately. That's the only rule.
My name is Hallie. I am born and raised in Idaho. Good news is I'm back home because I just moved to Washington. So we're back home with the family. That's not, it's not.
My good news, I climbed a tree today. I'm gonna float the river. Cut to shot of me in the tree.
My name's Avery, and I just passed my EMT certification test.
We're out here on the river while we have a brand new 4-month-old puppy at home, waiting to grow up enough to come down to the river with us maybe next year.
I'm Madison. I'm Reagan Ditlove.
My grandma, my grandpa, my mom, and my little brother.
And my dog. We are going to Disneyland for my birthday.
No, we're just gonna have a good time.
I'm excited for the churros.
So much good news.
I'm going to be 9. Well, you just turned 9. Or yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, that's cool.
Bye.
Bye. Happy 4th.
Well, thanks so much for hanging out, everybody. We met down at the river. Oh, look at that. The river followed us back here into the monitor. But yeah, if you head out to the river, I'll tell you, it wasn't as busy as we thought when we got out there today. But when I was talking with the Ada County people out there, Parks and Waterway, they're saying they're expecting a lot more people out there on Saturday. And as you heard from Rick's forecast, it's going to be a hot one. So get out there, stay hydrated, have a great, great weekend. You can see 90s all the way. All right, folks, we'll be back on Monday for the 208. Have a great weekend.